He kind of gives me inspiration. I'm gonna get to the topic in a second, but like, it's like, did you see that interview? He was like, he worked on the script for Inception for 10 years. And when you hear shit like that, I'm like, okay, I don't feel that bad. But isn't it crazy? Like, in his book, he's like, yeah, should I work on Interstellar today or Oppenheimer or fucking The Dark Knight? you know, let me just.
And he's like explaining to his friends, it's like, which one is that again? Oh, the time travel. No, but like different to the other one because like
the story about Bob. Bob Oppenheimer. All right, let's see if I can do this.
Okay.
Do I introduce myself? It's my channel.
You probably should. Yeah.
Alright, hi everybody. My name is Roger Torres. I've made videos here before. If you're new to the channel, just watch everything else, I suppose. A little bit of background. I did 3 years at Chapman University, the Masters in Directing program. And Anna, who recorded episode 5, I think it's called Fuck Around and Make the Day.
Yeah.
Is with me today because I had this thought as I've been struggling writing a feature that I'll talk more about on the channel later. Is did film school make you more creative? And a little bit of background on Anna. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Ana Farre Moutinho, and I studied with Roger. We both did the directing MFA at Chapman. I was kind of in advertising PR before, and then did this program, and now figuring out what's next.
We're gonna
just
fuck
like
around
everyone
and find
else.
out.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, yeah, so I'll kick it too. I mean, the reason I wanted to talk about this is because we kind of, I don't want to say we disagreed on it, but I think we could go back and forth on it. Is did film school make you more creative? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I was thinking a bit about the question because, like, I always wonder how people are defining creative, right? Because, like, so many things can be creative. You can be creative in business. You can be, like, creative in a contract. You can be, so I'm kind of like, I don't know if making me more creative is necessarily how I would put it.
Okay, so what is like the metrics in your head you were like measuring it by?
I was thinking more so kind of like, do I think I'm better as a filmmaker now than before I started? Like that was kind of one. And even that's like hard to define, but I would say like I'm definitely more confident. But I think a lot of what film school was for me was sort of understanding like, you're watching a scene, say like a rough cut of something, and like something doesn't feel right. So like your instincts are there, like it's not working. But then I think like what film school did for me was being able to kind of actually articulate and label a bit more of kind of like it's not working because, we're missing, tension between that thing, or it's not working because that shot takes us out of the moment or whatever. So I think like a lot more of the language and kind of how to explain yourself and kind of like understanding like the craft, which I think before I was just kind of like totally winging it and learning on the go, which we're gonna have to do more of because there's gonna always be things that we don't know, and it's kind of like, oh, how do we like shoot this fucking thing? Like I don't know.
Shoot
now.
it. Shoot it.
Just shoot it. But I think that yeah, when I was thinking about like how you phrased the question, I was like, I don't know if film school made me more creative because I think that's also just partly kind of who you are, but I think it's made me more confident as a creator, I think.
I don't know if I'm picking the right words for it, but I guess the way I would describe my feelings towards it, I don't know if confidence is the right word for me. I would say, what's a word for like trusting yourself? Is it just trust?
I figured that was confidence, but yeah, I
Okay,
don't know.
well, I'll just talk and hopefully somebody will understand it. I can argue for me, I think film school may be more competent, meaning like, do I understand the craft? Do I understand like screenplay structure and story structure? And like, can I direct actors better after attending film school? I think those things are true. In terms of confidence, I think, yes, it made me more confident. Like, I think I can make a good film, but I feel like the thing I struggle with now is I'm more susceptible to shooting my ideas down now because of that confidence. In my head, I'm like, okay, is this engaging? Is this like the right demographic? Like, when I'm writing something, is this too long? Is this too short? But back then, when you don't know those things and you don't know how to critique yourself, you don't care while you write.
That's true.
And that's the thing. That's the thing. I've talked to you about this the other day. Is like the place I'm feeling right now, where I have to almost unlearn some of the things I learned in film school. And I kind of think about it in terms of like sports. Like when athletes are training, like basketball, you think about footwork, hand position, and all that stuff. But when they play, they don't think.
Yeah,
So
you
I
have to be
think
in the flow state. Yeah.
yeah, I think a large part of what I'm trying to do now is like, okay, I have to trust that like those things are there, like writer brain, director brain is there, and just get back to working. And like naturally, if you practice enough, because we did for 3 years, and you know all the other things we did, those things should come out. And I think it's about like trust, trusting yourself. So yeah, I don't know. I'm
Mm.
more confident, but do I trust myself more? I think that's up for negotiation for me.
No, I think that's definitely true because like it's those things where kind of the more you learn about something, the more you know what you don't know. Like there's so much. And you also kind of as you like learn the craft, you realize how many different ways you can fuck something up. So I think like
Yeah,
you
because we saw a lot in the 3 years, you know.
you're like, oh shit, like if you fuck the editing or if you fuck the way it's lit, if you fuck the script, like
Hmm.
you kind of realize you have so many opportunities to make something go wrong.
Hmm.
So I do agree, like it does add sometimes a bit of like almost like self-censorship in that way because you're kind of like, oh, maybe this is a good idea, but like it doesn't seem perfect, so I probably like shouldn't
Right.
go ahead with it or whatever. So I would agree that I definitely do feel moments like that, especially when I'm writing. But I do like, I don't know, we were kind of talking about outlining versus like writing and then outlining
Hmm.
the other day and kind of like different like methods of creating. I think definitely a part of me wants to just kind of, yeah, embrace more of the like do then think
Let it be
like
messy, right?
mentality. Yeah.
To
Yeah. But it's
clarify what
hard
we
to do
were
that.
sorry, really quick. To clarify what we were talking about is
Mm.
Anna asked me a question the other day. She was like, "Do you outline your stories and scripts?" And I said, "Yes, to a degree. I do like bullet points. I'm not gonna get too into the weeds of that, but eventually." Me and her agreed. There's some process in the outlining where we're eventually like, well, why don't we just fucking write it?
Yeah.
You know, you get
It's
so
like
bored.
I'm typing words already. Like, should I just write the script and then see like how it goes?
And I,
But
I can attribute that a little bit to film school too, because one thing I didn't know before film school was like proper production timeline, meaning pre, post, production and stuff like that. Whereas like when I was just doing film when I was like 18 figuring it out, I kind of just did everything all at the same time. I'm not saying that's organized, but it's sort of like you just work and you don't care, you figure it out later. Like for
yeah.
a big example for me is like anytime I would edit something, like in Chapman you're supposed to do, or maybe in the industry as well, but Chapman you edit and then you sound design. For me, for my brain, doing both concurrently works because so much of sound informs the edit for me. So when I was working with the editors at Chapman, I was like, I think, and they would be like, that cut doesn't work. I'm like, but I know when that sound is there, it's gonna work. So just fucking put it now, you know.
Yeah, I know.
Which hard for me at Chapman. And this is specifically, I'm not gonna say the instructor's name, but you'll know exactly who. But if not, I'll talk. I'll tell their names after. But I always feel like I'm a filmmaker in a roundabout way. Like I don't know how I'm here, but I know that I like to be here. If that if that makes sense.
Hmm. As
I
opposed to what?
Oh, hold on, my camera just turned off. Okay. In the sense of like, I think my interest for storytelling began from like video games and cutscenes and stuff like that. And like cutscenes are essentially still live action scenes. They're just animated or like
Mhm.
drawn or whatever. And I felt like in Chapman when I was trying to force myself to think like a filmmaker or only used films for like inspiration and stuff like that. I kind of felt like I was fitting a square into a circle.
Mhm.
Whereas for me, I talked to you about this the other day. I was like when I kind of returned to just what I love about stories, which was just like enjoying films for the sake of enjoying, not necessarily analyzing why I like it, and playing games for the sake of enjoying them and returning to that. I feel like I don't know. I just felt a lot lighter because I was operating more like viscerally and emotionally versus like
Yeah.
technically.
Yeah.
And I
Hmm.
find the trick now. Like I know I really enjoy the movie when I'm not thinking about the movie while I'm watching it now,
Exactly.
which is really hard to do, especially after because I everybody does. You watch it like, damn, this scene's a little long, right? Oh, the music's kind of
Ah, it's
loud.
so annoying. I've had people ask me as well. They're like, "Oh, like, can you like watch films without like thinking now?" And I'm like,
No,
"It's so rare.
it's
It's so rare."
like I would say the one I remember it the most viscerally from the past year is Dune 2. Dune 2, when I
Yeah,
watched
shit,
it, that
that's the
movie just
best.
said, fuck everything you've learned, just watch this.
I know. But also, then what happens sometimes is when I'm watching something that's so good, I'm thinking like, shit, this is good. I'm like, I'm not even
You
in it because I'm
appreciate it
thinking
in like
about how
two
like this is
meanings, right?
so good. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
I know what you're saying. You kind of appreciate it in two ways. You appreciate it as an audience member, but you also appreciate it as somebody in the discipline being like, damn, they were cooking.
Yeah,
Like,
like that was fucking hard. That looked really difficult. Like you did it.
yeah, and
Um,
that's why, like, for me, like, did film school make you more creative? I think objectively, yes, right, because you know how to use the tools and stuff like that. But like, there is a weird thing that as you level up, like, you learn more, but you have to return back to almost that naivete that you once had and just trust that the tools are there. But once you have them, it's hard because you're always thinking about them. Maybe like once,
I
you know, I'm saying
yeah,
that's what I
and
struggle with.
I would agree with that because I think like yeah, like the more tools you learn, it's kind of then yeah, you're not letting your kind of instinct come in when you're supposed to be creating something, which is kind of exactly when you need to like forget everything and just do
Mm-hmm.
because like unless you're actually playing, no judgment, no kind of analysis of like, is this correct? Is this like standard? Does this fit into like the structures that I've been taught? Then like you're not going to make anything valuable because you're not
Mm-hmm.
doing anything authentic. And I think that there were some instructors who tried to kind of impart that on us. Because like when I think of like especially the instructors that I admired the most and that we all loved the most, often try to find that balance between like, okay, here's a bunch of tools, but then when you get on set, like fucking like throw it all out and just like
Johnny.
do, right? Yeah, Johnny. Like I
Mm-hmm.
think about that a lot where I'm kind of like he felt like a very much like an educator in like the best sense of the word, where it's sort of like if you need me to break down why something doesn't look good, I can tell you exactly why, but like it's not that's not kind of like the approach that you need to be taking to actually be making like something that's impactful. You kind of have to like dump all that stuff.
This reminds me of a conversation I had with my friend Amir recently, where I was
Mm,
talking to him about. I think there's a difference between being productive and working hard. I'll make this attached to film, but like this is the way we were talking
mm-hmm,
about it. I feel like as I've
mm-hmm.
gotten older and like discipline is, I would say, one of the traits about myself that I value the most. So I try to be that. But I notice like the more I focus on like, am I meditating? Am I outlining? Am I in a right headspace when I'm doing stuff? The less I actually do.
Oh,
You know, it's about like, am I in the right zone? But like, if you rewind, and this is how I contributed to film, is like now is like, is my outline okay? Do I know the characters? Do I know their backstory? Like, the more I think about that stuff, the less I actually write.
right.
Versus when I was like 17 and I was like, I have an idea for a story. I don't care what the budget is. I don't care if I had know what the ending is. Like, give me a paper and pen, like literally by hand, just writing stories. Like, I don't give a fuck. And I got more done that way than I do now when I'm like,
No, no,
how does this
no,
end?
no.
And now I've gotten to the point where I'm stopping to ask myself like while I'm writing, like, is this good? And I ask myself like, am I enjoying this? Like, as I'm writing this, am I
Mm.
actually enjoying it? And like, maybe it's counterproductive, but when I've been writing recently, I don't write until I find something that's fun to write about in what I'm doing, even if it may not make it into the story. Today it was just like, what do I actually want to talk about, even if it's not related to the story I'm working on now.
Mm-hmm,
This idea
mm-hmm.
fascinates me, and then bam, 5 pages just come out.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah, yeah. I think it's like, am I having fun? But also kind of in the same vein, if you're writing something that you would be excited to watch or like talk about or whatever, like yeah, those are the moments that feel really good. Like, is this a scene like do I really care about like this
What
thing
I'm
that's
writing.
happening right
Mm-hmm.
now? And like whether or not it fits into the structure of like the last 20 pages or like if it's repetitive or you can figure that out afterwards. But I think that's kind of, back to our conversation we were having of like outlining versus not or whatever. I feel like that's kind of why outlining has not ever worked for me in terms of like artistic writing. When we were writing like essays and stuff back in the day, like yeah, sure, because you have to kind of just tick off a few things as you write.
Mm-hmm.
But for this type of stuff, I'm just kind of like, I don't know, just like you have to kind of like let the scene like take you somewhere, and then it's like, okay, maybe that actually wasn't very good or very interesting. And then it's just like, okay, start over. But otherwise, yeah, you're kind of just gonna keep like holding yourself back, I feel, if you're
And
worrying too much about whether it's good.
and I think that's an indicator of where we are in the journey, which is why like I've kind of had to give myself grace coming out of film school, because like you kind of have to return to the same point. And I know I'm kind of making the same point twice, but when you mention Socrates or Johnny, it makes me think of that.
Mm,
When you go into film school, you accept that you don't know what you're doing. you come out of film school and to a degree you kind of feel like you know what you're doing, which stops you from doing what you have to do, kind of. And then you arrive at Johnny or Socrates' point, maybe 30, 40 years later, when he just told you, just fuck around.
It's like nothing matters.
Right? You learn all that for somebody to say it doesn't matter, just do it. But you have to go through maybe decades of is this good and self-doubt to get to the point of like it doesn't fucking matter.
That's so annoying though.
It is.
So annoying.
That's why I'm trying to expedite the process now.
Why do I have to go through like decades of self-doubt?
And these are
I already
people that
have
have
it
shot. Right, and those are people that have shot quote unquote real feature films and like real television shows that are like
careers.
Yeah, Johnny's ASC, right? So he's like a cinematographer, and you have somebody going.
Is that what it stands for? ASC.
Cinematographer. You have somebody at that level going, fuck it, right? Like,
it's like no, it doesn't matter. Just.
And I think
I
that's
also think.
Go ahead.
You know the way the sort of again with Johnny because you know
Johnny.
He as far as like trusting your instinct too and kind of just like more gut reactions to stuff, he would say just kind of like find the most interesting shot for this moment and shoot that. Like rather than trying to think so much kind of like I don't know, where is the character in this scene, like kind of what sort of like shot sizes have I been using prior to this, like how is it going to cut all together, and like I know that you do need to think about some stuff like that, and that's like those conversations that you have in pre-production with your DP around kind of like let's find like a language, something that's kind of like specific to this film. But then so often it's just sort of like oh god, like all of those ideas like don't work right now, like when we're on set and it's like okay, maybe we need to like rethink it or just like try something else. And you were saying about how much comes alive in rehearsal too, which like unfortunately is such a luxury. Like I don't know if you know many productions even get to do that anymore, right? Like I don't know if it's kind of worked into the schedules, but Farhadi, the really cool Iranian director who came as like artist in residence for a few weeks, he explained that like that's how he works too. It's like rehearsal on rehearsal. I think he spends like more time rehearsing than he does shooting. He's just like
I'm a
working with these
huge
actors.
advocate for that.
Because he was, I think, he kind of came up more so in theater, and so then that kind of like guided his process as far as how he was going to work as a director in film. And he said that like that's how he came up with the shot list. Is just they would be rehearsing and rehearsing, rehearsing, and he's just kind of walking around the room thinking like, what's the most interesting perspective in this moment? Do I want to be here? Do I want to be closer to them? Do I want to be, you know? And like that's how he discovered it. It's not so much kind of through.
And there was no real thought, right? It's just you were doing it and you were there, and it comes to you. That's why I think a lot of it is just like do the work and then trust it will be there. It sounds like hokey, but it's so true.
No, but like it's true. But I think that's kind of what makes it difficult, especially when you're at the beginning of your career and you haven't had as many experiences to show you like things work out. You just have to kind of trust it.
Ultimately, I feel like in terms of the way to summarize what we talked about, did film school make you more creative? Yes. I think it's I think my message to the audience is learn everything you possibly can in your 2 or 3 year program or whatever it is, and then trust that it's there and then forget about all of it.
I forget about all of it, but then like don't stop there. Like you have to like keep learning.
Do we have the message is
but
like
then
3
also
double
forget,
negatives?
But then also forget that.
Forget about
Learn more and forget it.
Put it away. Go get it once in a while.
Go get it, but like forget it's there.
That's it.
Just pick it up, but yeah, forget it.
How do you is this a podcast? How do you close this?
I don't know. You'd probably have like some music or.
It's a film, right? I'm gonna put some fucking credits, right? Directed by. All right, I'll stop it.